Gerrymandering is bad. But no, it's still bad. However, I feel cursed and blessed with finding it a little endearing whenever I see it. Hear me out. One, it's kind of like cloud watching, but just worse in every single way. Look at this gerrymander. Doesn't it kind of look like a rooster? This one sorta looks like that one grandma from SpongeBob. Are you sold on my vision yet? No? Doesn't matter. That's not what this video is about. This video is about an older story. The story of how we got the word gerrymandering itself, being the act of manipulating election boundaries in such a way that they favor one party. Despite the backdrop being a political practice that has probably damaged the lives of who knows how many people, it's a rather fun and humorous tale. Intentionally so, by the people who authored it. Because of that, I will follow in their footsteps and not take this video that seriously. I need not preamble much further. As always, there should be my source document listed in the description, along with some occasional citation numbers on screen. I will of course give a blanket encouragement to consider subscribing if you end up enjoying the video, but as a starting point, let's get our bearings. Our story begins with the 1811 Massachusetts state election for the role of governor. Elbridge Gerry, of the Democratic-Republican Party, narrowly defends his position of governor against a challenging Christopher Gore for the second year in a row, marking at that point a rare instance where both the state's governor and Senate would lean Democratic-Republican. This opportunity was not passed up. Towards the end of his one-year term, on February 11, 1812, an act would be passed that would shake up the senatorial voting districts within the state. Most infamously is what would be done to Essex County, in the northeast corner of the state. It was split in twain, producing this rather unique shape for one of the districts. Honestly, this wouldn't really faze me too much considering the state of things nowadays, but I guess back then this was a big deal. At first, the public response was cordial, still displeased, but mostly cordial. It was described rather plainly, basic stuff like being semicircular, like a crooked S, concave, or like a cracked eggshell. The point was made that Essex County, along with Worcester County, another victim of the redistricting, would, despite having a consistent Federalist majority, now actually produce more senators for the Democratic Republicans, the party that Gerry was affiliated with. I have labored to find a more fitting and less vulgar term for this, but what happened next can really only be described as perhaps one of the greatest and most influential shitposts in United States history. On March 26, 1812, the Boston Gazette would publish this image and its accompanying article. It turns the wonky-looking district into a mythical-looking monster, and for 5 paragraphs, acts with complete sincerity as if there was some vile beast haunting that part of Essex County. I really recommend reading this if you have the time. The author begins by invoking one of the condemnations pronounced by Christ in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, and continues by speculating on what precisely his imagined creature may be, for which he suggests many of the ancient monsters of myth. Eventually, by the help of an imagined doctor, it is settled that it is a salamander. Salamanders have historically been thought to arise spontaneously out of fire. Given the inflammatory chaos that had recently arisen under Gerry in the Essex County, they were seen as a fitting choice for the invented monster. Elbridge Gerry's surname and the 2 closing syllables of the word salamander were combined together, forming the word gerrymander. The author suggests an altered term based on some Latin stuff and also the fact that it can work as a double entendre, but I prefer gerrymander. This backstory is also why I've been pronouncing it as gerrymander throughout this whole video, instead of the more common gerrymander. I don't think there is necessarily a right or wrong pronunciation. I think people get too worked up for stuff like that. But I plan to always say it as Gerrymander from now on in honor of the original monster that once bore its name. We don't know who invented the name. There's a few people who tend to be suggested, but as I said, we kinda just don't know. Same goes for the creator of our original depiction of the Gerrymander. There are suggestions for who it may be, but we don't know anything for certain. Elbridge Gerry would go on to lose his position as governor in the 1812 state elections to the Federalist Caleb Strong. Just as a consequence of how narrow that race was, He probably lost the election due to this becoming a bit of a national scandal. Gary's nephew would state that his uncle found the redistricting of the senatorial elections to be exceedingly disagreeable, and that he hesitated to give it his signature. I don't know what to make of that, but in any case, his meddling certainly did help his party. In the years leading up to this incident, Massachusetts had a pretty even split in their senatorial seats, but in the aftermath it became incredibly lopsided in favor of the Democratic Republicans. Gary was also fine for a time, despite no longer being governor. I mean, within a year from that, he literally became the Vice President of the United States of America during James Madison's second term. He would also die by the end of 1814, which I wouldn't call fine. The story stops there for the most part, but I do have some thoughts. Most of them have to do with why I am drawn to this story in particular. It should be a sad story. Governmental abuses that, as far as I can tell, seem to have gone unpunished, at least for a time. My appreciation for it really has to do with both its inbuilt silliness, but really, more importantly, I've begun to see gerrymandering not as a term, but really as an example. When most people say gerrymander, or gerrymandering more commonly, they're using it in the textbook way, a term meant to describe the practice of election border manipulation. This is fine, but the creative spark that made that term so effective and widespread, to the point that over 200 years later, I, a random guy, am making a whole video on it, gets kinda washed away when you apply it in such a general way. As I said, that's okay. At the end of the day, there has to be a technical term for the practice. And could there be a better one than gerrymandering? A word with a history that can act as an example to you. I'm saying this as someone who actually tends to be a little more skeptical of Democratic and Republican governing practices, but when you see nonsense voting districts like this, or this, and you find that perhaps the person who permitted such a thing to happen were named like Harvey, Susan, or Eric, or whatever, don't just say that they were gerrymandering. Instead, remember the gerrymander, and invent your own term that is similarly fitting. Call it something else. The Harvey horse, or Old Susan starfish, Eric's unrighteous Excalibur. Have fun with it. I don't know. I suck at naming things. You know that little joke I made earlier about how this is like a doomer version of cloud watching? Do that, unironically, and then write an entire essay about how whatever you saw was terrorizing your county and state with full seriousness. As I said, I tend to be more skeptical of the effectiveness of modern democracy or republicanism, but if that's what we're gonna do, then it should be done in truth and honor, and anything less than that is a deviation to be scrutinized. As one last little treat for this video, let's take a small gander at our beloved and dearly departed little gerrymander one last time. If you've ever looked under a rock before, or perhaps just turned over some rotting log, or also, just looked at a picture of an actual salamander online, you may have noticed something, and it's that our gerrymander looks literally nothing like an actual salamander. Obviously, given the context of the article, this is referring to a more mythological kind of salamander, but to be honest, I've had a bit of a hard time nailing down what exactly that is. Salamanders, at least in the Western world, have been told of in this more magical sense, I guess, going back to classical antiquity. It had two consistent attributes: its association with poison, which needn't really be explained much, and its association with fire, which does warrant an explanation. As far as I can tell, this comes down to the fact that salamanders really like living in logs. Humans like burning logs. Because of that, it historically has not been too uncommon for a person, after having thrown a log into a fire, to watch salamanders suddenly just start to exit from the flaming piece of wood. This accidentally led to the belief that salamanders just spontaneously appeared from, or were engendered in fire, and consequently a lot of fiery or anti-fire properties were attributed to them. What I haven't yet been able to bridge the gap on is how they developed from that weird little lizardy looking thing into what is often portrayed as basically just a run-of-the-mill dragon. I would go so far as to say that the Gerrymander is literally just a dragon. I mean, they gave it wings. But for much of the medieval period, they seem to have been much more seen as a potion ingredient than an actual monster. At its core, it was kinda always just seen as like this little lizard-like thing. I'll be upfront and say that I haven't really solved this puzzle yet. I don't know if I ever will, it'd probably take me a while. So I would of course like to hear any alternative proposals, but this is my best guess as of the moment. I'm estimating that on top of their already mysterious reputation, their reptilian appearance and strong association with fire allowed them to kind of develop a connection to the typical European dragon. As a side effect of that, the properties of that dragon began to be applied onto the popular conception of the salamander. I don't know, that's just what I'm going with right now. But I must say though, for how small and seemingly harmless they are in appearance, they have really learned to punch above their weight class in terms of reputation. Fittingly though, I think they are very much built for stuff like that. With that said, I would like to thank you for your time and attention. I hope that I was able to make it worth it. Remember the Gerrymander, God bless, and goodbye. Okay, outro time. I don't really want to say too much. I guess just a quick thanks for the reception of last video. I'm gonna be honest, that kinda scared me. Like, genuinely scared. I don't know, I'd like to respond to comments, especially if they're like engaging with the material. I kind of gave up. Like at a certain point I was like, there are so many people watching this video and commenting that I need like some sort of system or some like time period in my day to respond to comments if the videos I make are gonna get that many views. Either way, that video did stupidly well. Thanks. Honestly, I'm still kind of like iffy on how much I like that video. That I still feel like that video should have been like an hour to deal with all like the asterisks and cases and a lot of other meandering details that I really wanted to get to. I don't know. I'm still not sure. Either way, I guess I'm glad that it did well. I almost kind of wanted to like unlist it for a little bit just because I was like, too many people are watching this, but I did keep it up. Yeah, general thanks. Thank you for watching the video. I'm glad that I had the opportunity to make this, so thanks be to God for that, for the idea and the time to do it. I probably should have gotten something out a lot sooner. I had a lot of struggling on choosing the video topic. This wasn't my original next project, but it kind of just became it. Okay, I'll shut up there. Okay. God bless, and goodbye.